What if the way we think about motivation is fundamentally flawed? And what if there was a better, simpler, more practical way to ensure that you stayed motivated for the long term? This video is kind of inspired by a book that I read this past week called Drive by Daniel Pink. And in the book, Daniel talks about the difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And he goes on to talk about how various different studies that kind of dissect the word motivation. I once read, I heard Tony Robbins say many years ago, motivation is really about what is your motive for action. Simon Sinek talked about starting with why, and why your motive is fundamentally your why. And that if your why is strong, you'll have a pull to do something and to do it consistently. But if your why is fundamentally extrinsic and is in externally reference, then you won't. And in Daniel Pink's book, he talks about how there are two groups of children who are like 4 years old, right? And at the time of doing this video, our daughter Sage is 4, about to turn 5. Sorry, Sage, if you're watching and you're already 5. And the study, and she just started school and she's loving it, right? And the study talks about how they get one, I want to get this right? Because it was a few days since I've read the book. They get one group of kids and they tell them to draw, and they say at the end, like when they finish drawing, like they can just draw for as long as they want, right? There's no boundaries on it, right? Just keep going. As many pages as they want, just keep going. Then there's a second group of kids separately that are told when you finish drawing, you'll get given a gold star. And they have the option to carry on drawing, but once they've completed a picture, they're going to get a gold star. And then afterwards, they kind of can make a decision as to what they want to do next, whether they want to carry on drawing or just go and play, right? Anyway, the experiment showed that the kids who their motive for drawing was just to draw for the fun of it, carried on drawing, like second page, third page, fourth page, fifth page, right? Whereas the group that had a gold star attached to the finishing and the completion of the first drawing got their gold star, and every single one of the kids then went off to play. And it really, really fascinated me when I read this, because I can think so much of my own life where there are areas where I've had extrinsic motivation and areas where my motivation has been intrinsic. Like one of my first jobs was in sales in the fitness industry, and it was selling gym memberships. And vividly remember for the first 6 to 9 months of that job, I was doing it fundamentally for the commission. Like I was doing it for the money. And then I had an experience of a lady coming in. I won't go into the full story, but she kind of broke down in tears and got very emotional and told me that the reason why she was joining was because she knew that she needed to lose weight because her husband had not been making a move on her for a while. True story, right? And that she felt if she didn't lose weight or didn't kind of basically just, in her words, kind of sort her body out, that he would either leave or have an affair. Like I vividly remember this. Like 20 years ago in Stevenage, in a gym called R3 Leisure, I remember the gym and the owner, a guy called Declan. And the beautiful end to this story is she did join, kind of wiped away her tears. She joined, her husband joined, and like 20 years later, they're still members of that gym and still married. And that for me was beautiful because that lady obviously had arguably you could argue she had an extrinsic reason for joining. But for me personally, it changed my motive for why I was doing that job. Like all of a sudden I was like, shit, like I can save marriages. Like if people join, like I can save a marriage, and they got kids and stuff. I was like, wow. Like, and all of a sudden I kind of took it differently, took it as like a duty, like a responsibility to do that and to do it well. But then there are other areas, right, where I think about where I've had really high extrinsic motivation. And when I connect the dots looking backwards to kind of go deep for a minute, I probably have been higher in extrinsic motivation than intrinsic. And I'm noticing a pattern in my behavior. And so I recognize that my extrinsic motivation, which is kind of the gold star concept, has been fundamentally because I've been doing things and acting fundamentally if I believe, and it's still something that I'm doing now and I'm aware of it, and I think awareness is the biggest part of change, right? I often find myself doing things if I think that it's going to have a likely extrinsic reward, whether that's a financial payoff, or many times I'm not doing it for the financial payoff. I'm doing it because I think there's a high probability that I'm going to get validation or approval or a metaphorical gold star from someone that knows me. And the reason why that is important to me is because inside of all of us, and I've been doing a lot of work on this with a coach this year, there is an inner child, and that inner child has needs. Now my inner child has a abandonment wound. My dad wasn't there as a child. My mum was there. My mum did the best she could with the resources she had available. But there was definitely an abandonment wound, especially from, say, my dad leaving. So I grew up externally chasing and needing validation and approval to make me feel enough. And that has been something that hasn't really healed. And it's only really been this year that has started to heal. So my motivation has been very extrinsic, which therefore it's kind of like yo-yoed, right? I can see patterns of behavior where I've taken massive action down one course and path, and then I've stopped. And if this is resonating with you, if you've noticed that you do that, like I truly believe, and I'll probably do another video at some point on procrastination, but fundamentally what I believe procrastination is it's an abandonment wound in the inner child who has such a high perfectionism bar because it's petrified of getting it wrong and then not getting the validation or being invalidated by its peers. That is generally what procrastination fundamentally is. That is generally what imposter syndrome is, comparison, that generally is where that comes from. So you want to kind of ask yourself the question, are you extrinsically motivated or are you more intrinsically motivated? And you might find that intellectually you can say that your motivation is intrinsic, but actually the best way to know the answer is to just look back on your patterns of behavior. I can see very clearly that my behavior, actions speak louder than words, and my behavior would suggest that I've been more extrinsically motivated than I've been intrinsically motivated. But like I said, if you're hearing this now and you're like, oh my God, yeah, that's me, it's really important that you don't beat yourself up about it. Like that is the worst thing that you can do for your inner child, is like become aware of something and then kind of beat yourself up about it. That's like the worst thing that you can do. What you want to do is really reinforce yourself for becoming aware. Like if you're even watching this video, then bravo for you having the awareness to stick around and recognize that this topic is an important one to kind of dial in and to work on. So how do you change it? How do you change being extrinsically motivated to internally motivated? Well, I think there's a few ways to do it. One is you're going to have to do some deep work. You're going to have to do some deep work, and that deep work starts with things like meditation. It starts with things like maybe getting a coach. It starts with things like maybe getting therapy. It starts with things like maybe doing some shadow work. It starts with things like journaling, where you start to reflect upon your thoughts and what are the deeper meanings perhaps behind those thoughts. That's the place to start. And then when you do that, it will start to help you recognize and become aware of your patterns, and then you can move into starting to change your patterns. And I'll probably do a follow-up video on this and go deeper into some actual more actionable things. But I don't want to overwhelm you, because all those, if all you did was leave this video and meditate and then research shadow work and maybe get a coach who asks you specific questions around this area that we're talking about, motivation, then that would be a really good place to start. And by the way, if you're watching this video and you're like into coaching or you're into personal development and you like the idea of maybe perhaps becoming a coach, then somewhere around this video, there's a link for you to attend our free training, which is a free 50-minute training and watch at your own time, which talks about the steps that it takes to becoming a fully certified master coach and then building a practice beyond that. And one of the steps in that, by the way, just to kind of caveat that, is like literally step one is you've got to get your own coach, right? If you're going to be out there as a coach and you're going to be congruent and practicing what you preach, then you've got to be doing the work on yourself. So one of the first things that we talk about in that training is the importance of working on self and obviously having your own coach. If you're going to guide other people, you've got to have somebody guiding you, right? So somewhere around this video, there's a link for you to do that. So go ahead and watch that training. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. It just helps me reach more people if you found this video useful and valuable. And also just feel free to kind of comment. Let me know what your thoughts are, whether you've enjoyed this, what you've got out of it, key takeaway, thing that you're committed to doing. Let me hold you accountable. I'd love to kind of hear from you. So that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye. Take care.